This is a podcast by the Straits Times.
I was going to ask you whether there's a fairly accurate way of measuring muscle mass with a scale at home. I mean, is that possible? You can actually buy some of these scales. Are they accurate?
Should I say I would never trust them? No. And maybe it's because I'm a researcher.
Right.
They might give you a proxy, but at the most a proxy. And if they give you a hint that you might be at risk, then you should get a more precise measurement.
I see. Okay, they're not actually accurate.
No.
But I mean, in a way, there's no harm, right, if it helps you.
I would say that if it really gives you the motivation to try to change your life and try to improve your health, they are perfect then.
Yeah.
But don't trust them too much.
Yeah, that's right.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joyce Teo, and welcome to Health Check. Did you know that even young Asian women who appear lean and healthy might already have insufficient muscle mass for healthy bone development? This increases their future risks for osteoporosis and metabolic diseases like diabetes and obesity. A local paper here has found that 1 in 4 young women, despite having a normal weight, had low muscle mass, weak bones, and high body fat. These are mainly Chinese women in their mid-20s through mid-30s. And get this, they are of normal weight, which means that conventional body mass index or BMI checks will not pick up on the hidden bone loss. To help unpack the findings, we have 2 guests today. They are Dr. Mia Thway Tint and Professor Johan Eriksson. Dr. Tint is the paper's lead author. She's a principal scientist at the A-Star Institute for Human Development and Potential and an adjunct assistant professor at the Dean's Office, NUS Yong School of Medicine. Her expertise is body composition using advanced methods like quantitative magnetic resonance imaging. Professor Eriksson is the Executive Director at A-Star Institute for Human Development and Potential, and he's highly knowledgeable about the S-PRESTO study or the Singapore Preconception study of long-term maternal and child outcomes cohort study, which the paper is part of. He was previously a professor at the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Helsinki and the chief physician at the Helsinki University Central Hospital in Finland. So we'll get Dr. Tint to discuss the paper's findings, and Prof. Eriksson will discuss how the findings can be used and what can be done to help women avoid this issue. Hi, Dr. Tint and Prof. Eriksson.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us here today. So we'll start with Dr. Tint. So Dr. Tint, your paper found that around a quarter of young Chinese women were already at greater risk of osteoporosis and fractures. So were you surprised by the findings?
Yes, this is the first Singapore-based study to investigate both muscle mass and bone mass in young adult Chinese women. We were surprised because Chinese are usually considered healthy, especially when being judged by BMI. Early local studies on muscle and bone health primarily focus on midlife or older women, examining muscle strength, bone density, or hip fracture incidence, but none had measured the prevalence of low muscle and bone density in women in their 20s and 30s. We identified that 1 in 4 young Chinese women had low muscle mass associated with less strong bone, putting them at a heightened risk of future frailty and fractures. This is the unique phenotype compared to Western population, because in Western population, this condition typically coexists with obesity and in older population. But what our finding shows is that it happens in a normal weight in young Chinese women.
But why is that so? Because you have high body fat, you tend to be obese, but here in Asia, it occurs at normal weight in young Chinese women.
You could also say that the Asian phenotype means that they are, in fact, overweight and obese, but you can't catch that just by looking at the height and weight. So you can't catch it with the body mass index. We really have to look inside them and look at the body composition, because the truth is that often a normal weight and lean Asian woman is obese from a metabolic point of view.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So even if a woman's BMI looks healthy, her body composition could be putting her at risk of low bone density.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that explains it, because I was going to ask how is that possible?
Yeah, because I think that is a 2 separate thing, I think. Because if we look at Asian older population, sarcopenic obesity might be similar. But the unique thing is that, for Asian, it occurs much earlier.
I see. So maybe can you explain the difference between BMI and body composition?
Right. So because the BMI only reflects the weight relative to height, and it doesn't really distinguish between fat mass and muscle mass, and muscle and bone works together, right? When you exercise, the muscle pull the bone, and then it's creating the stimulus to the bone to grow. Even when you have a normal BMI, but if your muscle mass is not healthy, if it is lower, it may not create sufficient stimulus for bone to grow.
So we need to exercise definitely for bone health.
Definitely,
Okay,
for
so
the muscle health as well.
So why is this? I mean, your paper, Dr. Jin mentioned the relationship between fat, muscle, and bones, right? Can you elaborate a little on the danger here? How do they interact?
So if you have high fat tissue, so it will produce the hormones which can strengthen or weaken the bones depending on the balance. So that is the adverse effect of a high body fat on the bone. And when you have a very high body fat, you will have the fat in the muscle. Again, that will lower the quality of the muscle and then lower the strength as well. So these will all actually bring to high adiposity, leading to higher metabolic risk because of the low bone density, higher risk of fractures, and because the muscle quality is low, the strength is low, then increased risk of frailty and disability.
I see. That's interesting. I don't think people actually think about having more fat in your muscles. I think they're separate. Again, muscles are mainly water.
Water-containing tissue.
Tissues and proteins and so on. Yes.
So if you have a high adiposity, eventually it will go to all the other organs.
So why is this so? I mean, is this due to diet mainly? Eating the wrong food?
I'm not sure if it's due only to diet. This could also be something genetic. And there has been some speculations, some hypotheses suggesting that the Asian population is more prone to put fat into what we called ectopic sites. Just like Mia suggested, fat goes into the muscle tissue, fat goes into the liver, instead of just going around the abdomen, where it usually goes.
Oh, okay. So it's the body types as well?
It's the body type as well, yes.
Okay.
And this is also something that you can look absolutely healthy, but you can have a huge amount of fat in your liver, predisposing to type 2 diabetes and other metabolic diseases, as well as cardiovascular disease. Once again, something you can't see from the outside.
Right. So, Prof, you're talking about the Asian phenotype, right?
I'm talking about the Asian phenotype.
As opposed to the Western one.
Yes.
So, okay, this study also is like an Asian study in Singapore, right? I mean, did it include people of the other races as well?
We certainly had people of Malay and Indian ethnicity beyond the Chinese one, but the majority of the women in this study are certainly Chinese. And on these individuals, we do have information on their dietary intake. And it's quite clear, it should be any surprise to anybody, that those who had a higher dairy intake had a better bone health.
And that has to be from young, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. But you mentioned that it's complex because there's a genetic component as well, right?
There is certainly a genetic component, and we know that cultural factors play a big role, and behavioral factors are major players, so we can't just identify one factor that's behind this. It's a very, very complex interaction. We can still just try to identify those people at risk who had a non-optimal body composition.
There are modifiable factors that we identified, physical activity and dietary patterns starting from very young.
In Singapore, are we already doing something about this?
To a certain degree, but my feeling is just like everywhere else in the world, people are focusing on older age groups. So the biggest surprise here in the S-PRESTO study was that we could identify women in the 20s and 30s who had a low muscle mass and low bone mass. And we really need to think about this and think about when do we start to develop our bones, when do we start to develop our muscles. And we believe that this should be taken into public policy as well and try to promote the overall health and well-being also of the young children and the future generations, because this could be a positive message, even if we have, should I say, negative findings that people have weaker bones, lower muscle mass, but we should keep in mind that we can do something about it. We shouldn't just accept it, but we can try to increase the muscle size, we can try to improve the bone, and this should be done already among the young children.
Yes, I think that would be good. So, Prof, since you mentioned this, can you briefly discuss, what are some of the possible ways we can go about to identify these women early in Singapore?
If we think about adult women, we can try to identify them, for example, with something that we call bioimpedance. This is pretty easy measurement where we get pretty precise measurement of both body fat as well as muscle mass. And then we get a proxy of bone health. This is being used in research, it's being used at some clinics and also in some healthcare settings already. So this could be potentially included in some programs in Singapore in collaboration with, should I say, SG Sports or something similar.
Oh, there is already this Active Health Lab program.
Yes. Exactly.
That's the one I see. I was going to ask you whether there's a fairly accurate way of measuring muscle mass with a scale at home. Is that possible? You can actually buy some of these scales. Are they accurate?
Should I say I would never trust them? No. And maybe it's because I'm a researcher.
Right.
They might give you a proxy, but at the most a proxy. And if they give you a hint that you might be at risk, then you should get a more precise measurement.
I see. Okay, they're not actually accurate.
No.
But in a way, there's no harm, right, if it helps you.
I would say that if it really gives you the motivation to try to change your life and try to improve your health, they are perfect then.
Yeah.
But don't trust them too much.
Yeah, that's right. You can use the smart scales and then you can look at it and you can track because it's at your home. And when you consistently seeing that your fat percentage is high, then it actually give you some hint in a way that you should actually go for a proper health screening.
Right,
Yeah.
but why is it that they're not accurate? The different scales, does it matter which brands?
I think it matters which brand, and the real BIAs do it in a much, much more sophisticated way throughout the whole body, and the scales at home just look at it through your feet. So to say.
Oh, but there's something that you can hold?
Yes.
They are slightly better, I think.
Yeah.
But then the sad truth is that the only way to really, really measure this is through something that we call a DEXA scan. And that's, of course, associated with a low degree of radiation. It's fairly expensive, and it's not available everywhere.
You have to do it at a clinic, right?
You have to do it at a clinic.
And there's no point doing it one time, I guess. If you need to measure, monitor yourself, then you have to do it again.
You would need to do it to see your improvements after doing lifestyle changes. Yes.
Okay, so it's only for certain people. I saw it on Netflix, the program, with the measure with the DEXA scan. Okay, not for ordinary people. So the options that we have is you can get your own scale, but just be mindful that they're not very accurate, right? And then the other option is, I know Active Health Lab has it. Any other way of measuring yourself?
Unfortunately, not really, no. I think the most important message would be that please be aware of the fact that even if you look normal weight, even if you look healthy, there might be a lot of fat inside that has a negative influence of your bone mass in collaboration with the low muscle mass.
So both of you mentioned that a smart scale at home can give a rough indication of a non-optimal body composition, right? That's when there is high body fat and low muscle mass. So I'm sure many people are curious about their body composition. So Dr. Tint, when they step on a scale, right, what should they be looking out for? Is there a specific body fat percentage that people should take note of?
Yeah, so for the body fat is, unlike BMI, there are different level of cutoffs. It's not really a standard cutoff. For example, the International Guideline of American Endocrine Society or in Chinese study with a large population shows that in Asian, if you have the body fat percentage up to 35%, maybe that is the acceptable range. More than that is likely to be unhealthy. But of course, there are other studies looking at 30s, 32%. So it varies.
Okay, because if you just Google, right, sometimes you see all this healthy fat percentage. They look kind of low, actually. It's like just a quick Google. I see the healthy range for men is 8 to 19%, and for women is 21 to 33.
Yes, I think likely those are for the Western population. Asian tend to have a higher body fat, even with the similar or the lower BMI compared to a Western population. I mean, like I mentioned, it's not like BMI, that widely acceptable values, because it varies by ethnicity, by age. So I think body fat is one of the factors that we should look at, and holistically, the bone, the muscle, and your metabolic profile from other biomarkers are important as well.
Okay, so we've talked about the body fat percentage. How about the muscle, the lean mass number?
Oh, yes, there's a clear guideline, and also for Asian population. But the only thing is that for that, we need a more detailed measure of the lean mass. So it's defined by the body lean mass in your upper limb and the lower limb, and in relation to your height. So it's a little bit complicated. That's why if we want to really identify low muscle mass, we recommend that you should go for those kind of the measurement, like a BIA, where it actually give you the derived value for this. So for the Asian woman, the cutoff is 5.4. For using the DEXA scan, and if we use the BIA, it's 5.7 kg per meter square. So it's a bit technical.
But my suggestion would be that for this purpose, maybe a
not go
cutoff
to-
below 35 would be the most appropriate to use. And 35 is really the highest body fat percentage that could be acceptable according to today's standards. But the truth might be that we might in the future have a lower cutoff.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the body fat. I think lean mass has a cutoff for Asian, but it requires the more sophisticated measure.
So even though there's all these percentages that you see, and if you Google, you can see all those things, but very difficult to accurately measure muscle mass, like what you mentioned.
Exactly, to measure it
Depends on-
correctly also.
Yeah.
And just like Mia said, in a way, there might be fat infiltration in the muscle, and
Yes.
usually the devices are still measuring this as muscle mass. So it gives, in a way, the wrong picture.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's really complicated.
Yes. So it doesn't really measure, it's not real. So if you drink a lot of water or something, I mean, does it like change the number as well?
Not really, but if you do a body composition measurement, we do recommend that you do it in the fasting state. So you don't mess up the device with a huge consumption of water.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you can really influence the findings from these measurements by drinking too much, so to say.
Ah, okay. So if you go to the active health lab, you shouldn't drink so much water before that.
Not too
Before
much,
you
not too much.
step on the scale.
Another proxy is the muscle strength that you can easily measure. And there's a cutoff for Asian women as well, that 18 kg force. So that is just a squeeze of a dynamometer, and then it will give you the value. So it is a good proxy for muscle health and easier to measure than the muscle mass. Meaning that before you really going into more
Like a hand grip strength.
detail. Hand grip strength, yeah.
Ah, okay. But that's also something that I guess you do in a clinic, right? You don't just get all this at home.
No, you don't do that at home, but
Yeah.
those devices are not that expensive, and many clinics have them nowadays because they are also used to assess the aging process and so on. So quite a few physicians have them, especially those who are working with older people.
Because there's more awareness now of sarcopenia, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think from the scale, I think the safest that you should look at is the body fat percentage. That's all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because then the truth is, in a way, if you reduce your body fat percentage, this is usually because you might be increasing your percentage of muscle.
the rest will
So
follow.
they go a little bit hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right. So you should aim for like lower. But you were mentioning because 35 is the highest, right?
Higher and
You don't want to cross that. But
Yeah.
is there like a lower number to look at? Anything lower would be good, but is there like a good range?
I think it's very much depend on the age group, and there's also not really like one standard cutoff, you see. So I think unlike BMI, you can't really say that, okay, 18.5 to 22.9 is good, that kind of thing. But yes, I mean, it depends in the certain guideline from American Sports Medicine and things like that. It actually shows the cutoff is usually about 23, 25.
Oh, 23 to 25. Okay.
Yeah.
So around that to 35. Okay, so that's a good range to look at. So if they do something like that, they have a rough idea of their fat mass is too high and then they don't have enough muscles. You know, what can they do to improve their bone health?
You need to lead a healthy life. A healthy diet would be good. Intake of dairy products and exercise, not only aerobic exercise, in other words, not only walking, jogging, you should also try to do some resistance training, and then certainly some extra intake of vitamin D, vitamin K, calcium, and protein is sometimes required. But my point would be that please don't do only supplements. Try to improve your overall diet.
Right now, the combination of this vitamin D3 and K2 seems popular. Is that safe? Because some people are saying the vitamin K2 is actually for clotting, right?
That's true. But if you follow the instructions, I would say that they are pretty safe. And you should in principle discuss it with your GP also, if it's okay to take it, in case you are taking any other medications that might influence your clotting.
I see. Okay. And then at the same time, of course, do everything that you've just said, exercise and everything. But how about people who are lactose intolerant?
If you're lactose intolerant, you can probably take some supplements. Because the sad truth is also that, for example, in Singapore, a huge number, at least of the women in our study, had a very, very low vitamin D concentration. And vitamin D doesn't come only from the dairy products. It also comes from the sun. But for obvious reason, it's not possible to spend too much time out in the sun in this warm climate.
And also, if you put a lot of sunblock, you may not get the effect, right?
Exactly.
Right. And harder for women, I think. I mean, I'll be worried. Anyway,
that's one of the things as well. Yeah, that's right. So, for the supplementation, I would think that, you should really consult with your healthcare provider to make sure that you understand your need and as well as for the safety reason.
Okay. I heard Prof, right? You said you shouldn't be relying on supplement, but I mean, that's something that people, I think, will be interested in. So I was just wondering if for those people who are looking to build muscles right now, there are a lot of supplements on the market. Is there any supplement that you recommend to young women with low muscle mass?
Personally, my answer would be no. And I would say that it's more important to eat a healthy diet, eat enough proteins through your diet, as well as do the exercise. Because otherwise we rely on the supplements too much, and then we might even skip the healthy part of our diet. We might even skip the exercise and just believe that since we are taking supplements, everything will work out perfectly well. And that's unfortunately not the case.
Right. But if you exercise, is there something that you can take as well to boost your performance?
My view is quite clear in a way that if you really, really have a healthy diet, you don't need any supplements. And with a healthy diet, I mean that you really have a high enough intake of vegetables, high enough intake of fruit, and you also have appropriate intake of proteins just to make sure that you get enough muscles.
And also that from our findings, what we find is that the physical activity or the exercises have the stronger positive influence on muscle and bone. And of course, the healthy dietary pattern that Prof explained complement its positive effect.
Okay, so swimming or running, that's not enough, right?
Unfortunately not. No. So we should add some kind of resistance training into it. But even if the recommendation is twice a week, I think once a week is much better than nothing.
Okay. So I was just wondering for exercises, for strength training exercises, I mean, how hard should it be? Like, is there like a guide? Because people will be like, I'm doing strength training, but it may not be helpful, right?
It may not be helpful because when you start, you certainly start with some kind of weights and in fact, you increase your strength really, really fast. So you need to keep in mind that you need to increase the resistance also all the time. Otherwise, you will just do the same exercise over and over again without really having any major effect.
I see. Okay. So you need to increase the weights.
And of course, it's easy to say, but it would always be best to try to start out with some kind of personal trainer who could give you the advice. If you have some back problem, if you have some other problems, it would be good that an expert is really giving you advice.
That's true, rather than you injure yourself and then stay off it forever, which is worse.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, there are already programs in Active Health. The national program. So, people can actually tap onto those resources to actually have a better idea about what they should be doing.
Yeah, that's a good program, actually. Okay, right. So to conclude, I wanted to ask both of you, what is that one tip that you would give to young women regarding this issue?
Physical activity, exercise is important.
Strength training, right?
The strength training, and of course the healthy diet.
And Prof?
More or less the same, but I would also like to say that please take care of the next generation. Please take good care of your children so they can build their bones and their muscles early in life.
Okay, so if you take care of yourself, then your children will benefit.
Absolutely.
You will pass it down.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for your time
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap for Health Check, a podcast series by the Straits Times. Don't forget to follow Health Check for free on your favorite audio apps, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Like us and give us a rating. This episode is edited by Amirul Karim. Thanks for listening.
Send your feedback to podcast@sph.com.sg. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or within our Straits Times app. Thanks for listening.